Okay, so we were currently uh, we were discussing regarding functions, what is functions, and how how do we declare the functions, right? So we were going through with a couple of declaration, which is like first is function declaration. This is a type of declaration where we do declaration in a traditional way. So when we select traditional way, we have to use like a keyword called function, then function name, and then it can take optional parameter, can be a multiple parameter as well. And then we write the function body. So we had seen like starting with function keyword, then provide the function name, and then return type. Or you can also print over here, as we have seen, as we had seen over here, um, as you had seen over here. So you can, if it is, if you do not want to return any value, then you can directly print or do some kind of actions that is required inside a curly braces. So this is a traditional way where we have to give, where we have to start declaring the function by using function keyword and give function name. If it is taking parameter in terms of the requirement, then it will take a requirement. And at the time of calling also, we have to just use the function name. And then you give the parameter, or if it is not required parameter, then it is just a function name. Second type of declaration we had also seen, which is like function expression. So it says that a function expression is a function that is assigned to a variable or a property of an object. So what is meant by this is, it says that this uh, this type of function is also known as anonymous function. So what is meant by anonymous? Anonymous function is a function which will not have any name. Okay, so let's give anonymous function. So it says that a function which is not having any kind of name is known as anonymous function. Okay, so a function which does not have any name is known as anonymous function. I've also prepared a document which we can see here. So in terms of basic definition of the function, the function is a block of code designed to perform particular type that we had seen yesterday. The declaration in the general way, the declaration is function keyword and then function name, and it will have a body inside a curly braces. Now, the complete function definition I have given over here, like what is function keyword, how do we start with, then if there are any return statement that we have to write. So when we had given over here return, so that should be the last statement inside a function. So let's say you have 10 lines of code, so you have to give like 10 lines of code first, and then at the end you have to return whenever you want to return it. If your function is returning any some kind of anything by utilizing a keyword called return, then this should be the last statement in the function. Okay, so this function expression is also known as anonymous function, which says that a function which is not having any name is called as anonymous function. We have seen how do we declare it. So it will be starting with a function keyword. It will not be having any kind of name. It can take a parameter, and then the body of the function will go inside a curly braces. And we know that if this function does not have any name, if a function does not have any name, then how do we know that, like how do we call those functions? Because the function itself is not having name. How will we utilize those functions? How do we identify these functions? That this is a function. So that is why it says that a function expression is a function that is assigned to a variable. So to identify this function, we assign a variable by using, again, any keyword. You can use var let const and then give a variable name. So that variable name will be acting as a function. So that is what we had seen here. If we did not see the example, we'll see that. So this is a type of function expression, which is like we have declared a function keyword, then without any name, and then there is a parameter, and we are trying to return value a plus b. Now, let's say if we have to call this function, this particular function, after words in the script. So how do you call this function? Because there is no name of the function. So that is why to identify this particular function, we have declared a variable, and this variable will act like a function going forward. Okay, so this was a function expression kind of declaration, which is also known as anonymous function. So it says that it will start with the function keyword, but it will not have any name. It can have a parameter optionally, and whatever the body that you have to write, function body, that will go inside a curly braces. And if this function is not having any name, then this should have to assign to a variable, which will be acting as a function going forward. Okay, so this was another way. I'll discuss the other way. I'll discuss this one. I've already discussed, but I'll discuss it later because we mostly use 0% of the time in test automation. So this is not much required. So most of the time that we use in terms of writing, in terms of test automation or in terms of programming, or whenever you go for the interviews and there will be some kind of programming round, most of the time that we use is known as arrow function. Arrow function is basically a modern function which says that this is also known as anonymous function, which says that um, a function which will not have any kind of name. That means a function which is not having any kind of name is known as anonymous function. But arrow function is one level more than the anonymous function. Here we have seen like function expression, which is also known as anonymous function. The declaration part is you have to start with function keyword, whereas arrow function says that you do not even require you do not even require function keyword to start writing a function. Okay, so if you see the definition for arrow keyword, arrow function. So it says that arrow function are being introduced in ES6 version of JavaScript. That means ECMAScript 6. This is known as ECMAScript 6. This is an engine. Different types of engine are there in the JavaScript. This is one of a version which has been introduced in 2015, I believe. It is used to shorten the code. It is used to shorten the code. Here, you can just observe this one. So here we do not use function keyword to declare the array, to declare the function, and we directly use the arrow symbol. So that is why it is known as arrow function. So this is called as arrow symbol or fat pipe symbol, fat pipe symbol or arrow symbol. So this is why this function is known as arrow function. It says that to declare arrow function, we do not even require a function keyword. So you can see this is one of a function that we have declared. This is not just a variable type of statement. This is a function basically. Okay. So arrow function says that we do not require function keyword to declare the function. Okay. So then how do we declare the function? So what it says is you can directly start parenthesis. Okay. So usually what do we do? When we write an anonymous function, we start with function keyword. Then you basically write this thing, right? And if it is not having anything, any name, then let's say we store it inside variable called as arrow, right? So this is how we generally write anonymous function, a function without having name. An arrow function is also a function which is not having name, but it says that we do not require function keyword. Okay. So you can observe the difference over here is like whenever you do not give function keyword to declare a function at that point of time, you have to use arrow symbol. Okay. So either you can use arrow symbol or you can use function keyword. to declare a function. Both cannot go together. So either you have to give function keyword or you have to give arrow symbol. So if you remove arrow symbol, now it is okay. If you just keep the arrow symbol and remove the function, then also it is okay. So whenever you declare this type of function is known as arrow function. So let's do a similar kind of, let's say, subtraction kind of things. So how do we do that is, this is an arrow function. Just try to write like syntax. Syntax is like you declare a variable and then just a parenthesis, arrow symbol, and then whatever the body that we have to write will go inside a curly braces. So this is known as arrow function. All this code that we are trying to write here or that we're trying to discuss, I'll push that to the GitHub and we'll provide you the URL so that you people will be able to access it as well. Okay, so this is one of a arrow function where we are trying to, let's say, subtract like a minus b kind of. Okay, so after that, like whatever the body that you write will be same as we have declared over here, or we have declared in other like this kind of things. You can do anything in the same way as you have declared in other function inside the curly braces. But the only difference will be like the declaration part, where for arrow function, you do not have to use function keyword. You can directly replace that with arrow symbol. Also, you have to remember one thing here, as this is the syntax. So this arrow will not come before the function, before the parenthesis. This arrow will be only after the parenthesis. Okay, so let's say do it as like a minus b. So what is happening over here? You have declared a function which is just with the parenthesis and then arrow symbol. So it says that if you do not use function keyword to declare a function, then you have to replace with arrow keyword, arrow symbol. And then we are just accepting two parentheses, two arguments, and it will return us a value. So whenever it will return us a value, and if we do not have any name of the function, we know that we have to store that inside a variable. And that variable going forward will become our function. It also says that this particular function will return us some value. So we have to catch that. So let's say arrow result equals to, how do we call? If we do not have the name, then we have to call with the declared variable. So you can just type it as arrow and then give two parameters over there, which is like 5, 8, 10, and 9. Let's see. And if you print this out, this will give you the result as 1, which is like 10 minus 1. So the like body of the function, you can write it anything, whatever it, um, whatever the action that you want to perform inside a function. But the declaration part is bit difficult. So you can say like this is 1. This 3 is coming from here, so do not worry for that. This 1 is coming. This is trying to give you the answer as 1, which is like 10 minus 1. Okay. So I hope this is clear. This we will use many of the time. And function expression, which is like with a keyword function and without any name, and without function and with arrow, we use most of the time in test automation as well as in the programming of the JavaScript.
Yeah, so Praveen, one query over
Yes.
here. So we are
Yes.
declaring let arrow result equal to value over here. So inside before the function we need to declare, we no need to declare this one.
No, wherever we need to utilize this, there you can declare it. So it do not require like you have to declare before the function. You can also declare it before the function saying that, let's say uh, this, and then you don't have to give let over here. You can directly store inside this.
Okay, okay,
So,
got
so what you're trying to do is you're trying to declare here and then
it.
assign the value over here.
Here. Okay.
So it will also work in the same way. If you see here, it will also work in the same way. It is trying to give you the one answer.
Okay.
Okay, okay, great. So this was like arrow function, which says that it do not even require function keyword to start and do not have any function name. Now the next one, which is also not important, but I'll just give you like how it works in general. So it is known as IIFA, which is meant, which means immediately invoked function operation. Okay, so it says that immediately invoked function expression. What is meant by this? So this means it is a function that is invoked immediately after it is defined. That means at the time of defining the function itself, you have to call. You cannot call it at later point of time. It is used to create a scope for variable and function that are defined inside that. It basically says that its scope will end after the declaration itself. So what I'm trying to say is, let's say we have declared a function over here, right? So as soon as you declare the function for IIFE, which is like immediately invoked function, you directly have to call here itself. You cannot call later on, like let's say if you want to call at 51 line, you cannot call those functions. So that is why like most of the time we do not use these IIFE and then constructor function kind of. So let's say what is the syntax of this, right? The syntax says that we have to write like this. So what is meant by this? So this is this function, like IIFE function, uh, will basically start with parenthesis. Directly, it will start with parenthesis, and it will not accept any like variable to store this function. This function will directly start with parenthesis. Then it will take a function keyword. Again, parenthesis. You can also write over here. Uh, if the parameter is needed, then you can also write a parameter. And then starting curly braces and ending curly braces. So this starting curly braces and ending curly braces will be for the code function body that we have to write. And you can see like uh, this parenthesis, which we see this one, the first starting with, is being closed over here to the curly braces, right? So if I do in this way, then probably it will be better. So you can see like the declaration part is you have to start with parenthesis, function keyword. It will take a method symbol. Then whatever the body that you have to write will go inside this, inside the curly braces. And as we have started with the parenthesis, so you have to close that parenthesis. And as soon as you close, you have to call here itself to call this function at that line of it, that point of time itself. That is why it is known as immediately invoked. After the definition, it is immediately invoked, immediately getting called. This is why the name of this function is known as immediately invoked function expression. As you know, what is function expression? Function expression is also an anonymous function which does not have any name. So you can see like it has just started with the function keyword, but it does not have any name. Just see an example over here. It's not so important in terms of information. So if you see like example, then it say like, let's say, that's it. So example here is we have started with a parenthesis. Then it has taken a keyword called function and a parameter and a parenthesis. If you want to declare the parameter over here, you can still declare. Let's say we'll declare there itself. So let's say we can say like A, B. And then we have started a curly braces. So whatever the things that you have to write inside this will go inside the curly braces. So we are saying like, okay, console.log A plus B. And then the curly braces ends over here and this parenthesis ends over here. And as we have given the parameter, so we have to give the parameter over here as well, because we're just trying to call the function just after the method, function have been defined or declared. So we have to call here itself. Okay, so this is why like this is known as immediately invoked. As soon as you declare the function, you invoke this, you call this function. Okay, so if you just try to call this, you will get the value as 30. So 10 plus 20 is 30. So this I've not seen like much uses. Only if we want to just give to the test automation, if you want to give an information, though we do not use this function, but if you want to give like information to the test automation saying that let's say server is up and running, so you can do like this. You can just declare this function, which says that like starting with keyword, and then you can directly print the console.log saying that let's say server is up and running. Just for the information to our test automation, you can use this. And then you have to call over here itself. So this will print us, though it is not much useful, it has printed as server is up and running. So this is known as immediately invoked. As soon as it is defined, you can immediately invoke this function. Okay, so that's where it is known as immediately invoked function. So let's say if you want to invoke after this one, it will say that what is that? What is this one? Because your test automation does not, like your script does not know what is this parenthesis, where it is coming from. So either you have to start here itself, or you have to start in the just next line. Before starting any other value, you have to just call this one. So that is why it is known as immediately invoke. Without going further, you just have to invoke this function. Okay. So this was known as immediately invoke. Not much use case that I have seen. And the last one is known as, so this was fourth one. There are few other as well. We have like compiled those one, which is like usually important for us in the day-to-day life and as per the interview. Others are useful for the development team. There are a couple of more, which is like used for development team, which we do not want to go with. So this one is known as constructor function. The other one is known as, the next one is constructor function. What is meant by constructor function is, constructor function basically are used to create an object. We know that whenever we have in other programming language, whenever we have a constructor, that means we are saying that the constructor value will be initialized at the time of creating object. So constructor used to use in helping of basically creating an object, right? So function, this function, which you say like starting with a capital F, here these this function or these function keyword are just a keyword, whereas this function, whatever you see is a constructor in JavaScript, sorry, constructor in JavaScript. And whenever you have to create a function, you can utilize the constructor function to also create a function in JavaScript. So it says that it uses the function keyword. Okay, it uses a function keyword followed by a function name, or it can also take a function name, which will be again capitalized. Okay, so the syntax of the declaration is this one. Syntax is, it is used to create object, and it is used with like how do we create this function is by using new operator. Then how do we, what is the syntax? So the syntax is like you can create it this way by using new operator. So as we know, like we have not given any name over here in terms of constructor function. So if you do not give any name, then you have to use a variable as an identifier. So that particular variable will become your function. Now, what is difference between, okay, then the question is, what is difference between this and function expression, right? This one, it also does not have any name. The only difference is like you can see here, it can take any number of parameter. Here also it can take any number of parameter in terms of function constructor, but the only difference is that the last parameter that you, last argument that you give for this function will be a function body. Okay, so what is function body? Whatever we try to write inside a curly braces, that will be the last argument for this particular function. Okay, and that will go inside an parenthesis itself. So what it says, you have to declare argument for any kind of calculation, and even the body part of the function will go inside a parenthesis itself. I've not seen any use case this till now in the last 3.5 or 4 years. So this is mainly not much of useful in terms of writing any Java program or test automation. Okay, it is helpful for some other development part of things. So that is why we have one method declaration or one function declaration, which is known as constructor function. Okay. So this is again, as we have declared here, one argument is this, and all the arguments will go inside a, a single quote itself. Even the body of the function will go inside a single quote. So you can say like we have declared two parameters over here, which is a, b, and then we are returning as a minus b. So this is like basically we write like this right here. If you see this one, so what did we do? We have declared a function, and then we are trying to, or this one we have declared a function, we have given a parenthesis, and then we're trying to return a plus b over here inside a curly braces. So this inside a curly braces in constructor function, we have to give as a last parameter, and that will also go inside a single quotation. Okay. Now, if you call this particular function as we are calling with the variable name, and we have to give the two parameter that we have declared, you can give any number of parameter that you have declared over here. So if you just try to use this one and execute the code, we'll say that this is giving us a value as 3 over here, which is 5 minus 2. If you just say like, let's say multiplication, then it will give you the 10 value. Okay, so you can see this is the 10. So these were, the functions in JavaScript. That is like how many types of functions are there. So there are two types of function. One is like named function where we define the name. Other is like anonymous function, which is like having no name. We have also seen different types of declaration. One is like function declaration. Other is function expression. Function declaration is generally start with like function keyword, then function name, and then it will be same. Either it can accept parameter, body will go inside a curly braces. Then we have function expression, which will start with function keyword, but without having name. And after that, everything will be same. It can take parameter and body will go inside a curly braces. Arrow function says that we do not even require function keyword to declare a function. So you can directly start with parenthesis and then give the arrow symbol. Body will go inside again curly braces. Immediately invoke function says that whenever you define the function at that point of time itself, you have to invoke or call the function. So this is like we'll start with a parenthesis, and that parenthesis, whenever you see like why it's starting with the parenthesis, because we call this function with the parenthesis itself. And then we have also gone through the constructor function, which is basically created as we create basically an object in object for class. So you can see like it has user, it is being created using the new keyword, and then a function, basically a constructor function, and it accept multiple number of arguments, but the last argument that it accept is the body itself, the body of the function, whatever the body that we try to write over here. Okay, so this was basically the complete function uh, definitions and functions in JavaScript. Okay. So now we had a few of the methods.
One question is there. Can you go to that function once? So here the last function is 77 lines. So we are returning some value, okay? That is, we are returning it, writing into the inside the body. So
Yes.
suppose any function we want to write like student report card. So we are having some calculation for calculating the percentage, okay?
Yes.
And we are not returning anything in the general function there. Just that we are calling that and what is the percentage will be it will display. In this case, how can we return here? Because that is the some expression we have to give there, okay?
Right. Every expression you have to give inside the single single quotation itself. So whatever the calculation it takes, it will go inside a single quote. That is why basically we do not use this constructor function. Okay. This is very difficult in terms of calculating many things. Whatever you have to write, it will just go inside a single quotation. Whatever the calculation that you have to do, it will go inside a single quotation in this way. And it will keep on just writing whatever the calculation it has to make. Okay.
Oh.
So that is why this function is basically not a feasible function in terms of any calculation. Okay.
Yeah.
So generally we do not use, like 0% of the time, as I said earlier as well. So 0% of the time we use, but this is just for the interview purpose that I have given you the example. They will ask you what is constructor function. Then you have to define, because here it is one of a unique way, like takes the argument and even the body will go inside the parenthesis itself. So they can ask you what is constructor function. So just to be aware of this, like what is constructor function, we have like I actually have given you the example. But in general, if you talk about in the real-time scenario, it basically do not use. We basically do not use. Okay. So only the three, the first three, which is like function declaration, function expression, and the arrow function. These are the three type of function or type of declaration of function that we use in our day-to-day life. For those programming, it always better to use either function name or with the anonymous function without name. Okay. Right. Now, what you people can do is like you can practice few of the programs for this. Is like, let's say, calculating. Calculate if a number is calculate. If a number is prime number. Then find out the largest number out of three numbers. Okay. And few of them you can again practice. I'll show you the link that you can check the programming for the practicing part. Maybe if you get time in the weekend, you can just try to practice with it. So you'll understand how the function is working. And in that way, if there will be any doubt over there, we will be able to clarify in the session, or we can take an extra session where we can just go for the Q&A. Okay. So if no question, then we'll move to the other things which we discussed earlier, that after the function, we'll discuss this. So there are few of the methods that we are still left in the arrow, in the array in JavaScript, which is like for each, map, filter, reduce, sum, each. So why did we leave earlier is it all these methods require a function as a parameter. Okay, so let's see one by one how it is working. Okay, so we'll start with for each. Let's start with for each. So what is for each method for an array? So the definition, you can say that it basically calls a function once for each element of the array, and then it will return a value. So what it says that it executes a provided function that it take as a parameter or argument once for each element in an array. So what is meant by this? So what will be the syntax for this is? Syntax we have to write like array. You have to declare an array by using we know how do we declare an array by just using a variable. You can use an array and then dot for each, basically for each. And this for each will take a function which can have a different types of parameters. So what will be the different types of parameters is like the current value, which is iterating. Let's say it is current value. This one is just trying to get this one is just trying to get a value from an array. So there will be multiple arrays. So whatever the current value is, you can write it over here. Then you can give the index and then the array that we are trying to iterate with. This is like again optional because it is like already taking at the first time, at the first point. So array dot for each, this is the syntax, is accept a function with a parameter, with a or multiple parameter. Then this will start with again curly braces, ending curly braces, whatever the code that we have to write will go inside here. And then this will be ended over here by ending with this curly braces for the body and this parenthesis for the for each loop. Okay, so whatever the calculation we do inside the curly braces, that particular calculation will be applicable for all the elements that we have inside an array. So what is this current value is? The current element which is being processed in the array. So let's say we have an array. Example, that for each array, or let's say fruits 1 equal to, how do we start declaring is with the square bracket, and then you write like, let's say some values over here in terms of fruits, let's say just these 3 values. Okay, so we have declared an array. So what it says that current value is for the first iteration, for the first time, it will have a current value as banana from this particular array. What will be the index for this? Index will be 0 because we know that in array index start with 0. And then optionally you can either provide here the array that you are trying to use, which is fruits. Even though if you do not provide, it will automatically given over here. It says that on this particular array we are trying to execute a function which will be applicable for all other value that we have inside a function, right? So let's say what we are trying to do here. So let's say we have to print all the value with the index from this particular array. You have to print all the value with the index from this particular array. We can also use for loop, like general for loop, where you can try to provide you can just try to give like key values, which will be like the index, and then values will be this particular value. So we can also do by utilizing the general for loop. I'm just giving you a task that you can try to use for loop and print out the index with value that you can just try with. But in terms of for loop, how does it work is, so you can just write an array, then to take for each loop. Okay, so you can select for each loop takes a callback function. So it will take a function inside the parameter of the for argument of the for each loop, for each method of the array. Okay, so it will take a function. So a function that accepts up to 3 arguments. You can say like a function that accepts up to 3 arguments. For each calls the callback function one time for each element in that, performs specified actions for each element in an array. So what it said, it maximum takes 3 arguments, which we have seen here, which is like current value which is being processed, what is the index of this value, and then array you can declare the same array that you are trying to provide here, but that is an option. So here we are saying that on this particular array, go one by one and iterate. This is also a looping kind of thing, and iterate through each and every time for all the elements that is available inside fruits1 array. Okay, so this is saying like, let's say fruits1, then we can declare a function keyword. Here you can see as a syntax, and this function keyword will take maximum 3 values. So let's say we are saying that this will take the first as the items that we are trying to, or the elements, let's say elements for this particular array. Second, I'm trying to do it as like index, whatever the index that we have. So our goal here is to print the item elements from the array with the index. Okay. And third, as I said, you can either provide this particular array itself, or it is not mandatory to provide. So let's say for now, we'll just remove it and we'll just try to give the 2 parameters, and then starting curly braces and ending curly braces. Now, whatever the code that we write in here will be one time will be applicable for all the elements. So this action, whatever the code, let's say we are trying to just write console.log. So this console.log will go and print for all the elements, all the available elements inside an array. Okay, so here we are just trying to print the value with the index. So we are saying that the items that we are trying to print over here, which is like elements, this element will be having an idea like where it is currently inside the array. So this this parameter or this argument will basically have an idea of where it is inside an array. So for the first time, it will have an idea that it is having a banana. Second time, it is like orange. Third time, it is like apple. Just give me a minute. Okay. Okay. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to iterate through all the elements of an array one by one. That is why we are using for each, and it says that for each. That means this is a particularly one of a type of for loop which will run for each element of the array. The name itself says that for each. Okay, it accepts a function which start with like function keyword arguments, and whatever the arguments we are trying to print over here will have an idea. This particular argument, which is elements, will have an idea of all the element it is having inside the array, but wherever it is currently is, that particular element will be stored inside this. So at first time, it will have banana, second time orange, and third time apple. And then this argument will take care of the indexing part over here. inside the array. So what will happen is the first time when the loop start, it will have an idea of, okay, banana, and then the index will have an idea we are at 0th index. Second time orange, and then 1. Third time apple, and then 1. After, and then this 2. And after that, there is no element inside the array. So it will just terminate the complete loop. So what we are trying to print over here is element, comma, index. Just simple. So this printing part will be applicable for all the elements that it is having inside an array. An array, what we are trying to do is, so if you just execute this code, it will print you the value, which is like banana 0. Okay. So it will try to print you the banana 0 kind of, orange 1, and apple 2. Let's say example, the other example for this could be, let's say numeric equals to numeric 1 equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And now we just want to, validate that. How can we? Okay, this example will be very much useful in terms of map, but let's say if you again have to do in this particular example as well, you can use for each loop. But let's say if you just have to print only the value, you do not require indexing system over here or index over here. Then at that point of time, what you can do is you can just go with for each. And as we said earlier, that it required up to 3 arguments. So that doesn't mean like it is mandatory required up to three arguments, right? So now this time I'm just trying to print elements of this array. And we know that this first value that you try to give, either you can give like, even you can declare over index. As we are trying to just give the first argument or only one argument, so this will have an idea of the current value. If you declare something like, let's say A, then this argument will have an idea of the index over here inside an array. We are just trying to give only one argument. So this argument will have the idea of what the value currently we are trying to process. And if you just try to print console.log and I think we have used the element as right index. So it will not print us the index, but it will just print the value. So just give a variable name or the argument name as LE. Okay, so it says that we have only taken one particular parameter, and this particular parameter will have an idea of current element that it is iterating through an array. Now, if you try to print this, you will get the value like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It is trying to print all the value from array. We had seen earlier using the for and for of loop. And this is like for each loop, how do we iterate through an array? Okay. Any
Praveen,
question over
here,
here?
Praveen, here means function LE we have given. We can give any name there, okay?
Yeah, you can give any name. You can
First
also take
argument
A.
will take values and second will take index, okay? That's it.
Right. First, we'll take a value of the array, and second, we'll have an idea of index.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Okay. And yeah. Now see, one more example for the same for each page. On the numeric one itself, let's say. So what you can do is you can utilize the arrow function as well over here. So this is very simple, right? We have just utilized the arrow function. we did not do anything. We have just removed the function, and then we have given the arrow function over here. So this is one of an example of using the arrow function. If you try to print, it will again have the same value. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is coming from this one, and this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is coming from the arrow function part. So you can utilize in this way as well. Okay. So this was like for each loop or for each method of an array. Now let's move to the another one, which is known as map function or map method of an array. So what the definition of the map says that it creates a new array with the result of applying a provided. This will also take a function as a parameter. Okay. This whatever the method now we are trying to go through with the array, all the methods will take a function. Okay, so this will also take a function as an argument, and it says that it creates a new array with the result of applying a provided function on every element in this array. So this is again similar to for each loop, which will also iterate through each and every element of an array. But map is basically used to shorten the code. Like it will basically reduce your code. And it is automatically given as a function as well inside an array. So how do we what is the syntax of map is? Syntax is again, you have to iterate through the array. So you have to use array dot map function. This map function will take a function. It will have again similar type of argument that we have used for each. So you can use, like, let's say current value. Current value will have again similar idea of where it is currently iterating inside. Then it can also have an index idea where what is the index, and then optionally you can use the array that you are trying to declare, and then the curly braces, starting and ending curly braces. And then at the end, we have to close this map function, right? So this map function says that this will also have a maximum of 3 parameters, 3 arguments. And whatever the function that we try to use inside a map function will be applicable for all the elements. It will basically iterate through all the elements, execute the function, and whatever the resultant value will be, it will display as an array, not something like it is here displaying as just a number. If you would have guessed this, like, I have checked this, and it is just displaying as a number over there, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Whereas map function says that it will return you a new array. It will create a new array. Okay. From the given array, it will create a new array, and it will not reduce the array. It will not increase the array, but similar array it will give you by applying the function as an argument that it takes. It will apply the function on each and every element of the array, and will try to provide you the answers or the result. So let's say we have declared one array over there, which is like numeric. So you have declared the array as numeric. So it says that numeric. Then use map function, map method of the array. It says that it also takes a callback function, a function which will have up to 3 arguments, maximum 3 arguments. The map method calls the callback function one time for each element. The definition is similar for each loop. The only difference is for each will display you the value as if it is like string, then string, numeric, then numeric values. But map will basically return you an array itself. Okay. So let's see how it is working. So we have a numeric array. which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just want to print by just making the square or double, multiplying with the same number. Okay, so let's say 1 into 1, 2 into 2, 3 into 3, 4 into 4, and 5 into 5, right? So what is the benefit of using map here is it will reduce the code. So if you try to write this particular the function that we are the requirement that we have is to just print the square of all the element, which is like 1 into 1, 2 into 2, and so on, which will give us a result as 1, 4, then 3, 9, 16, and 25 in this case, right? So let's see how do we achieve that just by using map function. So for this to get, you have to basically write at least 5 to 6 lines of code by iterating through each and every element, then make it as array of I using index and then into array of I. So what I'm trying to say is, how do you use this? By if you just write for loop, then you have to give like let I, then calculate the length of this, then iterate through each and every time. Then you have to in JavaScript, like it will be very easy. You just have to like numeric of I into numeric of I. A numeric one of I, numeric one of I, and then you have to just return the value or store the value inside. Again, another array. You have to just declare another array, and then you can write it inside the array, right? So this is how we do in terms of for loop. Whereas let's see how it works in terms of by utilizing map, the same things. Okay, so it says that you have to declare an array, whatever the array that you are trying to use the map methods of an array, and this will take a function, right? So if this take a function, what kind of function you can write over here? So what you can do is, you can also use like math.sqrt. You can also use like, which is like math.sqrt, which will automatically print. I believe I've also given inside this as one of the example. Let me find out if I have added over here. So all the popular method, all the methods that we use in terms of day-to-day life, I have given over here. So map, yeah, see, the definition of the map is the map creates an array by calling a specific function on each element present in the array. It says that we'll not change anything inside the array. This method iterates over an array and calls the function on every element. And we have this one like array.map. It takes a function which can have a maximum of 3 arguments. An example you can say like we are just trying to do some kind of things by writing ARR, and it says that whatever the function that we can write it inside here, it will be applicable for all the value inside an array, right? Right. So let's say how do we basically do an operation over here? How this function will take a parameter inside. Okay. So it will again take a function. You can declare it in this way. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Praveen. You
Am I
Yeah,
can.
Praveen,
audible?
you can.
Okay.
Yes, Praveen.
Okay. Okay. Right. So this will again take a function, and then what we have to do is, as we have only one, like we just want to iterate through the elements of the array. So it can take like, let's say again element as a parameter, because when it iterate through all the elements of the array, it has it has to have an idea of which element it is iterating through, right? So it will have an array. It will have an idea of which element it is currently iterating through. And then it can use a parenthesis, as we have seen over here. Whatever the code that we have to write inside the parenthesis, it will go inside a parenthesis. So let's say return element. What we're trying to do is we are just multiplying with the same element, which is like square. And then you can do this over here. Okay, close it out here. So what did we do here is we have just our goal is to just double the number that we have inside array. And we can use like for loop as well to iterate through each and every numbers one by one. But whenever we say like you have to by utilizing the map function or map method of an array, what it says is like you have to create an array where it will be iterating through, and then this particular map method will take a callback function, which is a function inside inside a map as an argument, and this function will have a parameter because we are trying to iterate through argument because we are trying to iterate through all the elements of an array. So this will have one argument, which we are trying to do here as a just return element into element, or we can also make element by utilizing an exponential, which is like element into 2. Okay, so you can write this like this. Okay, now we know that this particular map will return us some value. This is calculating some of the things, right? This is just trying to calculate, and as we are returning the value over here, so this particular complete code will return us some value, and that we have to accept inside let's say squares or a square, except inside a variable. So what happened is like first time when it iterate through the array using the map function as it is taking the function. So this function will be applicable on all the elements of an array. So first time it will go and check, okay, what is the element, what is the current element, which is 1. 1 into 1, it will return to this square. And this will be basically give you the result in array format itself. Okay, so if you just try to print out this value, which is console.log, and how do we print this? As we are getting the value over here, so you can directly print this particular variable or the variable where we are trying to store it. Let's clear it out. If you try to check here, you can select this value. Earlier, for each has given us just a numeric value. Whereas if you check this one, this map is basically giving you a value in the array format itself. As it said that it is non-mutable, so it will either not decrease the number of element or will not increase the number of element inside an array. It will just do the operation on each element of an array, and whatever the result will be there, it will return you the same result. Okay, any question over here or confusion?
No, Praveen.
No, Praveen.
Okay, so if you understand this, then the next two method becomes very easy. Okay, so this was again trying to do some of the operation on each and every element, and this is say that map. Okay, so this map says that I'll iterate through all the element and provide you the result after iterating through all the elements. Okay, so this will iterate through all the elements, and whatever the result will be, it will give you the result in array way. Like it will just return you an array. Okay, you can again utilize the same. You can also write it as an arrow function, which is like you can remove function keyword from remove function keyword from here, and then you can declare a symbol as an array. This will work in a same way. So we know what is different. Like anonymous, both are anonymous function. The only difference is like you can remove function keyword and then you can replace with array. This will work in a same way as it is, as it has currently given the result. Okay. Right. Now the another one is known as filter. It will also take a function as a parameter. So what is filter? You can say map is like non-mutable. That means you cannot change any value from an array, or you cannot add or remove any value from an array. Okay. Whereas filter says that it creates a new array with all elements that pass the test by the provided function. So it says that it will be a mutable, like you can either it can provide you all the results, whatever the function you give inside this. If everything is matching for the array, then it will try to provide you all the results. If it is not matching, then whatever the matching elements is there from the array, only those elements will be displayed. For example, let's say we have an array which is 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25. And now we are trying to check out of these elements, how many are even elements. So how do we check what elements are even? By dividing 2 equals to 0, right? So whenever you get divide a number by 2, and if you get 0, that is an even number, right? So if you try to use like filter method over here, it will just iterate through all the elements, and wherever it says that it becomes 0 by dividing 2, only those number will be printed out. So out of these 5 elements, only 2 elements will be printed out, and that will be printed out or give you the result in an array way, like new array it will create. Let's check the definition. What is the definition for filter? Map reduce. Given filter. Okay. No worries. So filter, I'll add in this, and then we'll provide you another new document for you. Okay. So filter function says that it will again take it will basically take a function. That function will be again applicable for all the elements. And whatever we write inside the function, whatever the element pass that particular function or returns the true value, those value only will be printed out in terms of result. Now let's see what is syntax. So there are 3 methods for an array. This will also be applicable for a string as well. So these are like map, filter, and reduce. So in the interview, they can ask you what is difference between map, filter, and interview. Just keep in mind that this is very important in terms of, though probably we'll use like only 10% of the time inside the test automation, but this is very important. These 3 methods are very important in terms of interview purpose. Okay, so the syntax is again similar to the map or for each, where it says that iterate through all the elements inside an array, and it will take a function. As we know that map and add for each takes maximum of three particular arguments. So even this will take 3 arguments, which is like index. First is like current value, second is index. We know what is current value and index. And third, optionally, you can give the array that you are trying to iterate through. And then again, starting curly braces, ending curly braces, and later on, end the parenthesis that is for filter method. Okay, we know that what is current value, the current element being processed in the array. Index is the index of the current element being processed. And array is like these 2 can be optional as well. It can take up to 3, but it can also have it can also take one single argument as well, as you had seen in terms of this for each method. Okay, and this array we know that where it has to call the function utilizing the filter on whatever the array it has to call. So let's try to check an example again over here. Let's take the same example of numeric that we have, which is having this one, right? So let's comment it out over here. So we know that we have a numeric value. We have a numeric array, which is having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is not only accepting the numeric array, it can accept like any number of things. Wherever the function, whatever the function you write inside a filter, wherever it qualifies, it will just print you those value. So let's say example, we are saying that let's iterate through this numeric things. Dot filter. And I'm saying as it takes a function, so we have to declare a function, then the number or element that we have inside this, and then we have to start the curly braces and end the curly braces. So we have to just give like basically we have to write all the body of the function over here. So as it is like complete a function, then you have to write a body as well for the function, right? So when we try to write here the body, so what I am trying to do here is I'm just trying to check return only those number which are greater than 2 or greater than 3. Okay, so how do we do that is how do we check whether how do we give the condition? By using the conditional operator, which is like, let's say if number is greater than 2, how do we write in general how do we write here is, let's say if number is greater than 2, then only print me the value, right? So then only print, like, which is like console.log, then number. This is in traditional way. We say that iterate through all the elements of the array, and by utilizing like array and then index of the array, it says that if numeric of index, let's say 0 is greater than 2, then only give me the value, then only print that particular value, else you do not print anything. So in the same way, I'm saying like if number is greater than 2 in this particular array, then only return me those values. So return this value. Understanding that?
Yes, Praveen.
Right. So we're utilizing a filter method of array, and it takes a parameter as function, and we are saying that just return the number which is greater than 2. As we know that filter will change the array, it will give you the new array. It can have the same length or less than the original length. Okay, and now how do we store? As we know, like this will give us a value, this will give us some value, this will return us some value. So let's say we say that result. Okay, so this value, all the value one by one will go inside a result, and this will be stored as a array. So whatever the value qualifies this particular condition, which is like number is greater than 2, those value will go inside result, and it will be printed as a new array. So if you just print it out, just like result, then you can see this will give you a value as basically 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you can see like in the map, it is not reducing the size of the array, but in filter, only those value will be displayed, whatever it qualifies for. So let's say we say that I only require the sum on the even number over here. So in that case, you can just write return. We know that whenever we do like number percentile 2, that will give us a value at 0. If that is 0, then only those value will be qualified as an even number. So if you print here, then you'll see like only 2 and 4 will be printed out as number. Okay, so one difference between map and filter is map will not reduce your array though it will give you the new array, so the value will be printed as new array, but the length will be same as original length. Filter says that I will only provide you those value which is mapping the function that you have written inside filter. So it will give you the array either with equal number of elements as original elements, or it will give you the less number in size than the original. Okay, I hope this is also clear.
Yes, Praveen.
Yes, Praveen.
Okay, and now the next one is called as reduce. Reduce function, reduce method will again take a callback function, which is again a function. But this is bit different than map and filter. As the name itself suggests like reduce. That means decrease, right? So it will iterate through each and every element of an array, but it will print you the single value, only the single value. Okay. So the definition, it says that it execute the function, whatever the callback function it takes inside a parameter as an argument or parameter. It will work on each and every element. It will apply to the each and every element of an array, but the resulting value will be a single output value, single value. So what is the difference over? What is the definition that we can go through with it? So we have reduce, right? It says that the reduce is used to reduce the array to a single value. Reduce the array to a single value. This is like one important difference between map, filter, and reduce. Reduce will also iterate through all the elements of an array, but it will just give you a result as single value and executes a provided function for each value of an array from left to right. Okay, and return value of the function is stored in accumulator. How do we? What is the syntax that we have? Syntax, you can say like array dot reduce method. And then it takes a callback function, which will again have a maximum number of 3 arguments, which will again have some of the argument, but not maximum. It can have any number of arguments over here. And then it will also take basically an initial value to start with. So what is meant by initial value? So let's say if you are trying to perform a sum of all the elements, let's say we have an array over here and we are trying to perform sum of all the elements. Okay. So what will happen in terms of sum of all the arguments? How do we do that? Example, I'm saying like in terms of sum of all the arguments, how do we do that? We basically define in any programming language, we basically define let sum equals to 0, which is our initial value, and then iterate through the array and do like sum equals to sum plus whatever the array is there and the index of an array. This is how basically in general we calculate, right? So let's say calculate for numeric itself. How do we calculate? So if we have a numeric array, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how do we calculate the sum? It's like you can use for let I equals to 0 as the index start from 0, I less than numeric 1 dot length, and then I plus plus. So what is I? I refers to the index of all the elements, right? And how do we do the sum? Is sum equals to sum plus numeric I. Okay. And then if you print the sum over here, console.log. Now some value will become the addition of all the values, right? So if you see the sum becomes like addition of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is like 15, right? So this calculation we have to do using the reduce method, right? So let's say how do we do it? First, like syntax of the reduce is array dot reduce, and it also take an argument as function. Then it says that this will have an accumulator. Accumulator means it is similar to sum, where we are accumulating the value, like adding each and every time. It will have an accumulator. Then it will have an idea of the current value where it is iterating through. It can also take optionally index, can have, and then it can take the array that it is iterating through, which is again an optional, and then you write curly braces where basic code will be executed. Now, what is accumulated over here? This accumulator is, it will basically accumulate value previously written. So here you can see, like, first it had like sum, and then when it iterated through, it became like 0 plus 1. So in the same way, it will keep on accumulating, like adding the value in terms of if we are trying to find the sum. So it will try to increase the value or add the value from the array. Now, current value, we know that the current value being processed in the array. Index, we also know that the current index of the element of an array. And this is again optional, which is like iterator value, iterator of basically an array. And now this will, as we know, after completion of this particular parenthesis or the function that we write, it basically takes an initial value. So this initial value will be given to accumulator, which in terms of this is sum, we have given as a 0. So if you give a 0, then this accumulator will start with 0 first, and then it will keep on iterating through. Understanding, right? So we can see here this, it has taken the 4 arguments, right? Whereas index and array is basically not necessary. There are two arguments that is mandatory, which will be like, it says that, let's say a total we are calculating as a sum. So let's say a sum, and then this will be a current value, which will be iterating through, like going through with the element. So like first time it will be first value, second time it will be second value, and so on. And then this value is a mandatory over here, which you will write after the completion of function by separating with comma. So let's see the same operation. How do we do on the numeric one? So as per the syntax, we have to give you have to give an array, which will take by writing the dot operator. You can use like reduce, and also we know that as per the definition, it says that a function that accepts up to 4 arguments, but not necessary. The 2 arguments will be mandatory. The reduce method calls the function one time for each element, calls the specified callback function for all the elements in an array, and then it will return accumulated result, whatever the accumulated result. Accumulated means basically like in each and every step, whenever it adds the element in terms of if you are trying to add, if you're trying to do some kind of other actions, then in terms of whatever the accumulated value will be, it will give you the result. Okay, so this is that this will reduce your array to a single word. So whenever we have to do like sum of all the elements in an array, it will also give you the result as single value. So let's say how that is work. So we have to give a function over here, and this will this says that you can give up to four arguments. So let's say I'm just trying to give let's say sum, and then we are saying the element, the current element. Let's say write it as current value or current element from an array. Okay. As we know, like all the 4 are not mandatory. We do not need indexing and then again writing the same array over here in the parameter. So I'll just skip that out. And whatever the body that you have to write, that body will go inside this, inside the body. Whatever the code that you want to write, that will go inside starting curly braces and ending curly braces. So let's say what we are trying to do here is we're trying to do a sum. So I'm saying like just return me whatever the sum will be. Or you can also do store it inside a variable, which is like result, and then you can say sum plus the current element. Okay. And then you can return this value. So this value on every iteration, it will try to print you sum of, it will try to add the value from an array. So what is the array that we have? We have array as this one. So we have this array over here, and we are trying to iterate through all the elements of an array and make a sum of all the elements. So it takes two parameters over here, which says that accumulator, which is similar to here as sum equals to 0. Then current element, which will iterate through. It's similar to like indexing system over here. It iterates through all the elements. And then we are saying like make it as, here we are saying like sum equals to the next, sum equals to sum plus next value from the array. So it says that sum plus the next element or the current element from the array, and then result, give me the result. Now, what is the initial value for this? That you have to give after completion of function, say 0, which we are trying to add. So initial value of sum will be the 0 itself, right? So we are trying to give us a value as 0. And now whenever you call this, let's say, also this will return you the value. So you have to accept inside a parameter, which is like, let's say, addition. So we are catching all the result, whatever this particular code will give, that we're trying to write inside that we're trying to accept inside a variable, which is like addition. Now, if you just try to execute the code by writing console.log and all the results that it will give you, then you can see like it will just give you a answer as the numeric value, which is like a single value, which is 15. Okay. So here, two things are mandatory. One is like the accumulator that you try to give. You can give any name, not only the sum. You can also give total and so on. Then the current value, it is iterating through. Whatever the operation that you have to do, you can do over here. And then the initial value. So let's say if you're trying to multiply all the elements, so the initial value will become 1, right? So if you want to just multiply, if you multiply with 0, then the value will be 0 itself. So if you want to just multiply, then at first initial value will be sum equals to sum equals to 1, and then you can do a multiplication over here, right? That is how we do perform multiplication. So for that, the initial value will be 1. If you print the code, then in all the value, it will try to give you the same result whenever you multiply it. So you can see like it, even in the normal for loop, it has given you 120, and even using reduce, we have given you, it has given us 120. These are not, so important in terms of test automation, but just an important in terms of writing or clearing the interviews kind of. Okay. So these were like, the important methods that we have. The other method that we have is like sum and each are not basically important, but it says that sum is again equal to the filter, which will take a function, and whatever the, okay, so each and sum is like, each will basically iterate through all the elements, and if all the elements are matching, then it will give you the true value. If not, all the elements are not matching, then it will give you the false value. So let's complete in the next 5 minutes. I hope you will have like 5 more minutes.
Yes, Praveen, you can continue.
Yes, Praveen.
Okay, so let's check what is like difference between each and sum. As I said, again, like we might not be using inside the test automation, but there's just the next two are also for the interview purpose. So what is the definition of each? I've given inside this documentation as well. I'll provide you just after finishing the class. So it calls a function on every element in the array. Okay, and the syntax is again same to uh, uh, other things. So okay, let me write it. So each says that it will test whether all elements in the array, whatever the elements that we have, whether all elements in the array are passing the test. That means whatever the function that we write inside each method, if all the elements pass those validation, then this will say that this will return you the true value. It will basically return you the Boolean value. Each and sum both will return you the Boolean value. So each says that if all the elements of an array pass the test, that means the function that we write, if it is going through all the test and it is matching with all the value, whatever the function that we write, then it will return us true, else false. If sum says that if any one of the value is matching, then it will return you true, else false. Let's see the example for else. Syntax for else is syntax for each is each syntax. So syntax for each is what I have given the name. It is not basically each, it is every, not each. It is no, not every, not each. Sorry. I've given the sum over here. Is that right? Each over here, every over here. I'll add every over here as well. So the method name is every, not each. So every says that whenever you every will also accept a function. The definition is same. It will call every element inside a function, and then whichever it passed the test. If all the elements are passing the test, then only it will say like true, or else it will say false. So let's say the syntax is again like array dot every. This will again take a parameter, take a function, and it will have a maximum of 3 parameters or 3 arguments, which is like current value, then index, and then if you want to write the same array, you can optionally write that as well. Index and array is again optional. One particular value or argument will be a mandatory, which will iterate through all the elements of an array. So let's say we have this as an array, right? And then we use every. So we know that every and sum will give you the result in Boolean. So this will basically check the condition whether the function that we have write is matching the condition. So example, like you can see here, the sum checks whether at least one of the element of an array satisfies the condition. In the same way, every checks if all the elements of an array satisfies the condition, right? So in terms of every, it will also take a function that accepts up to 3 parameters. The every method calls the predicate like function that we declare for each element in array until it returns a value which will become false. So as soon as in every a single element become false, it will return you the value as false. If all the test pass, all the elements is satisfying the condition, then it will return you the value as true. So this every and sum will give you the value in Boolean, either true or false. Okay, so let's try to write an example. We have a number or numeric 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we are trying to check that let's say element And then we have to write a body inside this. So we are saying that if every element, if every number or element, if every element is greater than 5, let's say if every element is greater than 5 or not, check the condition if the every element is greater than 5 inside the inside the array or not. Okay, and then it will return us a value. So every time it will return us either true or false. Like let's say first time it will check, okay, 1 is greater than 5. No, it is not matching. So at that point of time itself, it will give you the false value, because every says that every element of the, to give us the true value, true result, every element should match the condition that we're trying to check. If the first element itself or any element of the element is not passing the test, or it is trying to give us the false value, there itself it will give you the result as false. So let's say result 1 equals to this. We are trying to just get the result over there, whatever it will be. Either it can throw you the true or false. Now let's try to print it out. The result 1, you'll see like it will just check for the first condition, and then the result will be printed, because it knows that to print the true value, we have to like pass all the test. So it has given you false. Now if you just change it out with 0, then it will validate all the condition. Okay, 1 is greater than 0, yes. 2 is greater than 0, yes, and so on. So if you check now, the value will be true. So it says that if any one of the values is not matching, then the result it will display as a false. If all the elements are matching with the condition, then it will give you the true. In the same way, let's say for the sum says that if any one of the element is giving us a true value. So sum will also again have the similar syntax, which is this one. Only this is like sum method over here. So it says that it will again iterate through all the elements of an array. And if any of the elements, like even if single elements is passing the result, passing the condition, if any single elements is passing the condition, let's say we are trying to give like 4, we know that 5 is greater than 4. So if by utilizing sum method of the array, if it says that if any single element is giving you the result as true, then it will display you as a true value. If all the elements are not matching with the condition, then only it will give you the false value. Okay, why it is giving greater than 5? Okay, I'm trying to result. So, okay, let's change back to 4 here. And then if you try to execute this, it is saying like true, because we know that 5 is greater than 4. If you just give greater than 5, earlier I was trying to print this result. So that is why it was throwing us an error. If you see like now, if none of them is matching the condition, then it will throw you the false value. So this is what the use of sum and array. Let's say if you give like greater than 1, and if greater than 0, and if matches at the first time itself, as it match the condition at the first time itself, so it will immediately print you the result. It will not even check for the other condition. It will directly throw you the result as true. Okay, so this is what about the array and the functions that we have in JavaScript. It has taken a longer time today, but we have like completed our few of the part.